I'm Leah Mitchell, 32, and 2 weeks ago, I discovered my parents had set sail on their dream 40th anniversary cruise to Alaska, the one I secretly paid $18,000 for as a surprise gift. They didn't invite me. Instead, my younger sister Megan and her husband were enjoying glacier views on my dime while posting endless photos. When I called Dad confused and hurt, he stuttered before admitting, "We thought you were too busy with work to join us." The truth came later when my mother's journal accidentally synced to our shared iPad. Leah ruins every family event. This time, we'll enjoy ourselves. Before I dive into this painful family story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If you've ever experienced family betrayal or been taken for granted, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of real stories. Now let's get into how my so-called loving family stabbed me in the back and what happened when karma finally caught up to them. Growing up in the Mitchell household in suburban Connecticut meant understanding my place in the family hierarchy early on. My parents, Elizabeth and Richard, had very specific expectations for each of their children. As the eldest, I was expected to be the responsible one, the achiever, the one who would make them proud with academic excellence and career success. My sister Megan, 3 years younger, was allowed to be the free spirit, the one who could change majors 3 times in college, quit jobs when they got too stressful, and somehow still receive endless support and second chances. I can't remember a time when I wasn't conscious of my role. When Dad lost his job during the recession of 2008, I was the one who deferred my college acceptance to the University of Pennsylvania to attend community college for 2 years, saving the family thousands while working part-time at the local grocery store. Megan, meanwhile, continued her private high school education without interruption. My parents insisted it was because she wasn't emotionally ready for change while I was so strong and capable. By the time I transferred to a state university and graduated with honors in marketing, I had already internalized that my worth in the family was tied to achievement and sacrifice. My parents attended my graduation, of course, but left early to catch Megan's art show at her much more expensive liberal arts college. "You understand," Mom said, patting my hand. "Megan needs the encouragement more than you do." That pattern continued into adulthood. When I landed my first marketing job at a small agency, I worked 60-hour weeks to prove myself. Within 5 years, I had climbed to a senior position at Wilson & Hayes, one of the largest marketing firms in New York. My parents seemed proud, in their way, but also strangely distant. "Don't work too hard, Leah," Mom would say during our increasingly rare phone calls. "You'll burn yourself out with all that ambition." Meanwhile, Megan bounced from passion to passion teaching yoga, starting an Etsy shop, selling handmade jewelry, working at a friend's cafe, all with my parents' emotional and often financial backing. When she met Derek, an accountant with a stable job and a trust fund, my parents were ecstatic. Their relief was palpable. Finally, someone would take care of Megan. The Christmas incident happened last year. After months of putting in extra hours on a major campaign for a prestigious client, I was finally in line for a promotion to marketing director. The final presentation was scheduled for December 23rd, and there was simply no way I could make it home for our traditional family Christmas on the 24th. I called my parents in early December to explain. "But it's Christmas Eve," Leah, Mom said, her disappointment evident. "We always spend Christmas Eve together." "I know, Mom. I'm really sorry. But this is a huge opportunity. I can fly in on Christmas Day instead." "Megan and Derek will be so disappointed," she said, not acknowledging my suggested compromise. "They've been planning special announcements." As it turned out, those announcements were their engagement and Megan's pregnancy. I missed it all. Stuck in a conference room until midnight on December 23rd, then catching a red-eye on the 24th, only to be stranded at O'Hare due to a snowstorm. I spent Christmas alone in an airport hotel, calling my family to congratulate Megan while they all celebrated together. The frostiness from my parents lasted for months. My promotion, which I did get, was acknowledged with a perfunctory, "That's nice, dear," text from Mom. When I suggested coming home for Easter, Dad said they were keeping it small this year, only to see photos on Facebook of a full family gathering, including cousins and my elderly grandmother, who had been driven 3 hours by my aunt to attend. That's when I decided to make a grand gesture. Mom and Dad's 40th wedding anniversary was coming up in July, and they had always talked about taking an Alaskan cruise. When we retire, they'd say, though Dad had been retired for 3 years already and they still hadn't gone. I knew money was the issue. Despite Dad's pension, they had refinanced their house to help Megan with her student loans. I contacted a travel agent named Nancy and spent weeks planning the perfect anniversary surprise. A balcony suite on a luxury cruise line, premium drink packages, exclusive shore excursions to see glaciers and wildlife, even a helicopter tour over Denali. The total came to just over $18,000, which represented most of my savings after the down payment on my condo. I arranged to have my name on the reservation as the paying customer, but made it clear to Nancy that this was a gift for my parents. I even thought about taking vacation days to join them, but decided this should be their special trip. Besides, I had already committed to leading a major marketing campaign that would run through July. In May, on their actual anniversary date, I presented them with an envelope containing the cruise details, scheduled for July. Their reaction wasn't quite what I expected. Mom cried, but seemed almost uncomfortable. Dad kept saying, "This is too much, Leah, way too much." I assured them it was my pleasure, that they deserved it after all they had done for us over the years. "Will you be coming along?" Mom asked, her voice oddly strained. "I didn't book myself a ticket," I explained. "This is for you two to enjoy. But if you want company, maybe we could look into adding me? Though I'd need to check my work schedule." No, Dad said quickly. "You're busy with your big career. We wouldn't want to impose." I left that day feeling something was off, but chalked it up to my parents being overwhelmed by the gift. Little did I know what they were really planning. The weeks leading up to the cruise were filled with anticipation on my part, at least. I waited eagerly for my parents to call with excited questions about the trip, to share their packing plans, maybe even to suggest I try to join them after all. The call never came. When they finally phoned, 3 days before departure, the conversation was strangely subdued. "We just wanted to say thank you again, Leah," Mom said, her voice carefully controlled. "It's very generous of you. You're welcome. Are you all packed? Did you download the cruise app like I suggested?" "Oh, yes. Everything's taken care of," Dad jumped in. "We won't bother you with the details. We know how busy you are." Something in his tone made me uneasy, but I dismissed it. This was their first luxury vacation in years. Maybe they were just nervous. The day they were set to depart, I noticed something strange on Facebook. My mother had posted a photo of their packed suitcases with the caption, "Ready for our Alaskan adventure." What caught my eye wasn't the matching luggage I'd gifted them last Christmas, but the background specifically. The guest bedroom door, slightly ajar, revealing Megan's distinctive bohemian travel tote. That same day, I received an automated email from the cruise line. "The Mitchell family is all checked in for their Alaskan adventure. Family, not couple." An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. When I called the cruise line customer service, I explained I had booked the trip for my parents. "Yes, Miss Mitchell, I see you're the primary account holder. The reservation is for 3 adults in the Grand Suite. They've all checked in successfully." 3 adults. Not 2, not 4, 3. I refreshed Instagram compulsively that evening, and sure enough, there it was. A photo of Megan and her husband Derek posing on the cruise ship deck, the Seattle skyline behind them. "Alaska, here we come. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for including us on this anniversary adventure. Number blessed. Number family first." My hands were shaking as I dialed my father's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Mom. Same result. Finally, I texted Dad. "Saw Megan's on the cruise with you? Did you add her and Derek to the booking?" His response came hours later. "Reception spotty on ship. Yes, thought it would be nice to have them along. Megan needed a break with the baby coming." I called immediately when I saw his text. This time, he picked up, probably not checking caller ID in his hurry. "Dad, I'm confused. I paid for a romantic anniversary cruise for you and Mom. How did Megan and Derek end up there instead of me?" There was a long pause. I could hear the ship's announcement system in the background. "We thought you were too busy with work to join us," he finally said, his voice strained. "You're always working, Leah. Always too busy for family." Megan and Derek had vacation days saved up. And with the baby coming, this was their last chance for a big trip. But didn't it occur to you to ask me? I paid $18,000 for this cruise, Dad. $18,000 of my hard-earned money. Now, Leah, don't be like that. You've always been so generous. And you said it was a gift. With no strings attached. No strings attached doesn't mean inviting other people in my place without even telling me. Your mother and I thought you'd understand. You always do. I ended the call before saying something I'd regret. Hurt and anger swirled inside me as I paced my apartment. On impulse, I opened our family iPad that I'd borrowed to download some marketing books. Mom sometimes used it when visiting, and I knew she kept her journal app on it. I told myself I was just looking for confirmation of when they decided to invite Megan instead of me. What I found was far worse. The iPad synced with Mom's phone automatically, and her most recent journal entry from the day before departure popped up. All packed for Alaska. Richard and I are so excited to finally take this trip, even if it came from Leah's guilty conscience after missing Christmas. Having Megan and Derek along will make it so much more enjoyable. Leah ruins every family event with her judgmental attitude and workaholic complaints. This time, we'll enjoy ourselves without walking on eggshells around her. Besides, she's so busy with her precious career, she probably wouldn't have come anyway. This way, we don't have to deal with her inevitable last-minute cancellation or her making everyone feel inferior. Megan brings such joy and light to everything. They're expecting us to help with the nursery when we get back. Of course we'll help. It's our first grandchild. I felt like I'd been punched. Tears blurred my vision as I scrolled back through earlier entries, each one revealing more painful truths. March 15. Leah called today about Easter. Told her we're keeping it small this year. Don't need her stress and judgment ruining another holiday. The family will be much more relaxed without her. December 26, last year. Christmas was perfect with just us, Megan and Derek. Their engagement and baby news made it the best Christmas ever. Leah's absence was actually a blessing in disguise. No awkward conversations about her work or her perpetually single status. No tension. Just family harmony. October 2, last year. Leah called to brag about her promotion prospects. Always about her career. Richard says we should be proud, but I find it exhausting. When will she realize there's more to life than work? Megan understands what truly matters. Family, love, building a life with someone. I worry Leah will end up alone with nothing but her job titles for comfort. Each entry was worse than the last, revealing years of resentment and what seemed like outright dislike from my own mother, the woman who had always told me she was proud of me, who had encouraged me to work hard in school, who had seemed supportive of my career choices, had been harboring these thoughts all along. I collapsed onto my couch, the iPad sliding to the floor. How could my own mother feel this way about me? How could my family exclude me so deliberately, so cruelly, after taking my money for their vacation? The hurt was physical, a crushing weight on my chest that made it difficult to breathe. If you're feeling this story in your gut right now, hit that like button. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any other kind. And trust me, this roller coaster is just getting started. Let me know in the comments if you've ever discovered something shocking about how your family really feels about you. The discovery of my mother's journal broke something open inside me. Like picking at a loose thread and watching an entire garment unravel, I couldn't stop pulling at the inconsistencies and strange moments from my family history that had never quite made sense. I spent the next 3 days in a daze, calling in sick to work for the first time in years, barely eating or sleeping. Instead, I scrolled back through years of journal entries, text messages, emails, and social media posts, looking for patterns I had missed. What I found was a systematic campaign of exclusion that had been going on for much longer than I realized. 6 months ago, Megan had changed her wedding date with only 3 weeks' notice. The new date fell exactly on the weekend of a marketing conference in Chicago, where I was scheduled to present. When I explained I couldn't attend because of this long-standing professional commitment, my family acted disappointed but understanding. "It's unfortunate you'll miss your only sister's wedding," Mom had said. "But we know your career comes first for you." Now I found text messages between Mom and Megan discussing the date change. "Mom, are you sure you want to move it to the 15th? That's Leah's big conference weekend. Megan. Exactly. This way, I don't have to deal with her taking over my wedding with her perfectionism. She'll be devastated to miss it, but she'll use work as the excuse so she won't even blame us. It's perfect. Mom, if you're sure, honey, I just want your day to be perfect. Megan. It will be. Without Leah there to criticize everything and make it about her, I felt sick reading this exchange. My own sister had deliberately scheduled her wedding to exclude me, and my mother had been complicit. The conference excuse had given them the perfect cover they could blame my absence on my workaholic tendencies rather than their deliberate manipulation. The house purchase was another betrayal I uncovered. 2 years ago, when I was looking to buy my first home, I had asked my parents if they might help with the down payment, as property in New York was so expensive. They had apologetically explained that their retirement funds were too limited to help. "We wish we could, sweetie," Dad had said, "but we just don't have extra money right now. We're proud you're doing this on your own." I had accepted this at face value and scraped together the down payment myself, taking on a larger mortgage than I'd hoped for. But Mom's journal and their bank statements, which I found stored in a shared cloud drive, told a different story. Just 3 months after declining to help me, they had given Megan and Derek $50,000 toward their home purchase in a suburb, just 30 minutes from my parents' house. Mom's journal entry read, "Helped Megan and Derek with their down payment today. Such a relief they'll be nearby when the grandchildren come along. Leah would have used our money to buy some tiny box in the city, hours away from family. This investment keeps our family close." The pattern continued with vacations. I found photos of family trips to Maine, the Outer Banks, and even a weekend in Montreal that I had never been told about. Mom's journal explained the omissions. Another lovely family weekend without Leah's complaints about the accommodations or the itinerary. So much more relaxing this way. Perhaps most hurtful was the discovery of a family group chat that had existed for years, excluding only me. In it, my parents, Megan, Derek, and even some extended family members shared daily updates, planned gatherings, and occasionally discussed me. Uncle Frank, "Is Leah coming to the Labor Day barbecue?" Mom, "No, she's working as usual, probably for the best. Last time, she spent the whole day talking about her promotion." Aunt Patricia, "That girl needs to learn there's more to life than work. She's turning into quite the corporate robot." Megan, "Can we not talk about Leah for once? She dominates conversations even when she's not here." The thread continued with laughing, emojis, and agreement. My own family, mocking me behind my back, celebrating my absence from family events. I reached out to my cousin Rachel, who had always been kind to me but was part of the group chat. She answered my call immediately. "Leah, how are you? I heard about your parents' cruise. That was so generous of you." "Rachel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do my parents and Megan talk about me when I'm not around? Do they exclude me from things deliberately?" The long silence told me everything before she even spoke. "Oh, Leah," she finally said, "I've always felt uncomfortable about it. The way they talk about you isn't right." "How long has this been going on?" "For years," she admitted. "At least since you moved to New York. It started with little comments from your mom about how you think you're better than everyone else because of your job. Then it became jokes about not inviting Miss Big Shot to family events because you'd probably be too busy anyway." "And no one ever stood up for me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I did. A few times," Rachel said quietly. "But then I'd get shut down. Aunt Elizabeth would say I didn't understand the family dynamic, that you'd always been difficult. Eventually, I just stopped engaging when your name came up. I'm really sorry, Leah. I should have told you." "What about the cruise? Did you know they invited Megan and Derek instead of me?" "Yes," she admitted. "Aunt Elizabeth told everyone at Sunday dinner last month. She said you'd given them this extravagant gift to show off how much money you make, but that you'd made it clear you were too busy to join them. She said they decided to invite Megan and Derek as a last baby moon before the baby comes." I couldn't speak for a moment, processing this deliberate distortion of events. "Rachel, I never said I was too busy. I specifically asked if they wanted me to come along. They told me not to worry about it." "That's not what they told everyone else," Rachel said. Your mom made a big deal about how you always prioritize work over family. How this cruise gift was just another example of you throwing money at them instead of giving your time. The conversation with Rachel continued for over an hour, with her revealing more instances of my family's duplicity. The picture that emerged was devastating. My parents had been actively nurturing a narrative about me as a cold, work-obsessed snob who thought herself superior to the family. They had used my career success not as a source of pride, but as a weapon to distance me from everyone else. The weird thing is, Rachel said toward the end of our call, "I always thought you were working so much because that's what Uncle Richard and Aunt Elizabeth expected of you. Remember how they used to brag about your grades and achievements when we were kids? How they pushed you to take all those AP classes and extracurriculars while Megan got to just hang out?" Her words hit me like a revelation. She was right. My parents had pushed me relentlessly throughout my childhood and adolescence. "You're so smart, Leah. You're going to do great things. Don't waste your potential like we did." Those had been my mother's constant refrains. When had their pride in my achievements transformed into resentment? After ending the call with Rachel, I sat in my silent apartment, trying to reconcile the parents I thought I had with the parents they actually were. Had I truly been such a terrible family member? Was I really the joyless workaholic they portrayed me as? Or had they created that narrative to justify their preferential treatment of Megan? I opened my laptop and began to write, documenting every instance of exclusion and betrayal I could remember or had evidence for. The document grew longer and longer as memories surfaced. The family vacation when I was 16, where I had to share a pull-out couch while Megan got her own room. The time I won a major marketing award and my parents didn't attend the ceremony because it conflicted with Megan's community theater performance. The countless times my accomplishments had been downplayed while Megan's smallest achievements were celebrated extravagantly. The pattern was undeniable, stretching back further than I had initially realized. But why? What had I done to deserve this treatment? And what was I going to do about it now? By the time my parents' cruise ship docked back in Seattle a week later, I had prepared myself for confrontation. I'd rehearsed what I wanted to say, practiced keeping my voice steady, even written down key points so emotion wouldn't derail me. This wasn't just about the cruise anymore. This was about years, decades, even of being treated as less than, of being pushed away by my own family while they pretended it was my choice. I tried calling my parents the day their ship was scheduled to return to port. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted, "We need to talk when you get home. It's important." No response. Meanwhile, Megan was flooding Instagram with photos from the cruise. Mom and Dad posing by a glacier, the four of them dressed up for the captain's dinner, wildlife sightings from their balcony suite. Every smiling image felt like another twist of the knife. She even tagged me in one post. "Thanks at Leah Mitchell for making this amazing trip possible. Best sister ever. Number blessed, number family vacation." The hypocrisy was staggering. I couldn't stop myself from replying, "Interesting choice of hashtags, considering I wasn't invited on this family vacation that I paid for." She texted me immediately. "What do you mean? Mom and Dad said you couldn't come because of work. Are you mad? I'm confused." I didn't respond. Let her stew in that confusion. Let her ask our parents what was really going on. After 3 days of silence from my parents, I couldn't wait any longer. I knew they'd be home by now. I took a personal day from work, got in my car, and made the 3-hour drive from New York to Connecticut. Arriving at their suburban colonial house just after 2 p.m., both their cars were in the driveway. They were home but had been ignoring my calls. The rage and hurt I'd been suppressing bubbled up as I walked to their front door, evidence folder tucked under my arm. Mom opened the door, her face registering shock at seeing me standing there. "Leah, what are you doing here? Why didn't you call to say you were coming?" I did call. Multiple times. "You and Dad have been ignoring me." Her face flushed. "We've been busy unpacking, catching up on things after the trip. Come in, come in." The house looked exactly the same as always, family photos covering the walls, including many of Megan, but noticeably fewer of me, especially from recent years. Dad was sitting in his recliner watching golf, but stood when I entered the living room. "Leah, this is a surprise, is it? I told you we needed to talk." The tension in the room was immediate and palpable. Mom busied herself offering me drinks, snacks, anything to delay the inevitable conversation. I declined everything. I want to know why you invited Megan and Derek on the cruise I paid for instead of me, I said, cutting straight to the point. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. Honey, we thought you were too busy with work, Mom began, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd heard so many times before. You're always so busy, and Megan and Derek needed a baby moon before the baby comes. Stop lying, I said quietly. I asked if you wanted me to come along. You said no. That's not how we remember it, Dad interjected. You made it clear you had that big project in July. I mentioned I had a project. Yes. I didn't say I couldn't come. But that's not even the point. The point is that you took an $18,000 gift from me and gave part of it to Megan without even telling me. It was a gift, Mom said, her voice hardening. Gifts don't come with conditions. It wasn't a condition. It was common courtesy to at least ask the person who paid if you could change the reservation to include other people. You're being dramatic, Dad said dismissively. It's not like you couldn't afford it. With your big salary, $18,000 is probably pocket change. His words hit me like a slap. I saved for months to give you that gift. I wanted it to be special. It was special, Mom insisted. We had a wonderful time. Why are you trying to ruin it now? I took a deep breath and opened my folder. I know about everything. The group chat I'm not included in. The family events I'm not invited to. Megan's wedding date being changed, specifically so I couldn't attend. The money you gave her for a house after telling me you couldn't help with mine. Their faces changed as I spoke, moving from defensive annoyance to something closer to fear. I read your journal, Mom. The color drained from her face. You had no right. It synced to the family iPad automatically. The iPad you let me borrow. I know what you really think of me. How I ruin every family event. How you're all happier when I'm not around. Dad stood up, his face reddening. Now wait just a minute, young lady. You had no business snooping through your mother's private thoughts. Was it snooping when I found the family group chat everyone's in except me? Was it snooping when I discovered family vacations I was never told about? Was it snooping when Rachel confirmed you've been bad-mouthing me to the extended family for years? Rachel had no right, Mom began. Rachel is the only one who's been honest with me. I was shouting now, years of suppressed hurt and anger pouring out. My own family has been systematically pushing me away, making me the villain in some story you've created. And I want to know why. Just then, the front door opened, and Megan walked in, Derek behind her. Her face registered surprise at the scene before her. What's going on, Leah? Are you okay? Your text seemed angry. Did you know I wasn't invited on the cruise? I asked her directly. She looked confused, glancing between me and our parents. Mom and Dad said you couldn't come because of work. That's not true. They never invited me. They took my $18,000 gift and invited you instead, without even telling me. Megan's eyes widened. Wait, you paid for the entire cruise? Mom said it was from all of us, that you'd contributed the largest share but we'd all pitched in. Another lie revealed. I turned back to my parents, who now looked cornered. Why are you doing this? Mom suddenly burst out. Why are you trying to cause problems? We had a nice family vacation. We thought you'd be happy for us. Happy? That my own family took my money, excluded me, lied about me, and then posted photos all over social media to rub it in my face? What kind of person would be happy about that? See? This is exactly why we didn't invite you, Mom shouted back, finally dropping the pretense. You turn everything into a drama. You've always been difficult, always making everything about you. Judging us, making us feel small with your big career and your fancy apartment. Elizabeth, Dad warned, but she was too far gone. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to have a daughter like you? Always perfect, always achieving, making the rest of us look like failures by comparison. Megan brings joy and love to this family. You bring criticism and judgment and make everyone uncomfortable. The room fell silent after her outburst. I stood there, shocked by the venom in her words. The years of resentment finally laid bare. Mom! Megan gasped. That's horrible! Leah's not like that at all. But I barely heard her. I was staring at my mother, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time in my life. This wasn't about me being difficult. This was about her own insecurities, her own feelings of inadequacy projected onto me. "I have never judged you," I said quietly. "I have spent my entire life trying to make you proud, working hard because that's what you taught me to do, achieving because that's what you expected of me. And now you resent me for becoming exactly what you raised me to be." Dad stepped forward. "Leah, your mother is upset. She doesn't mean—" "Yes, she does," I interrupted. "She meant every word. And so did you when you called my $18,000 gift pocket change. Like my hard work means nothing. Like my sacrifices for this family have never meant anything." I turned to leave, my whole body shaking. "Leah, wait!" Megan called, moving toward me. "Don't go like this. We can talk about it." "There's nothing left to talk about," I said, my hand on the doorknob. "I've spent my whole life being the responsible one, the one who's there when needed but pushed away when inconvenient. I'm done." I walked out the door to the sound of my name being called, not looking back. As I got into my car, the neighbors across the street were standing on their porch, clearly having heard the commotion. I felt a flash of embarrassment that quickly turned to anger. Let them hear. Let everyone hear how the perfect Mitchell family really treated their eldest daughter. The drive back to New York was a blur. I pulled over twice when tears made it impossible to see the road. I called my best friend Amber from a rest stop, barely able to form coherent sentences through my sobs. "Come straight to my place," she insisted. "Don't be alone right now." I spent that night on Amber's couch, emotionally depleted but somehow lighter for having finally confronted the truth. As painful as it was, at least now I knew where I stood with my family. The pretense had been stripped away. "You know what the worst part is?" I told Amber as we sat with cups of tea. "All those years I thought something was wrong with me, that I wasn't trying hard enough to connect with them, that if I just worked harder, achieved more, gave more, they'd finally be proud of me. But it was never going to happen. The more I succeeded, the more they resented me for it. That's their problem, not yours," Amber said firmly. "Their insecurity, their jealousy. You have nothing to be ashamed of." I nodded, beginning to believe it might be true. I bet some of you watching can relate to this moment of painful clarity. Have you ever confronted your family about their treatment of you? Did you walk away feeling better or worse? Share your experience in the comments. And if you're finding this story connects with you, click that like button to let me know I'm not alone in this struggle. The confrontation with my family left me reeling. I took a week off work, something I'd never done before outside of planned vacations. My boss, Janet, was surprisingly understanding when I vaguely explained I was dealing with a family crisis. "Take the time you need, Leah," she said. "The Wilson account can wait. Your mental health comes first." Her compassion nearly broke me. After years of internalizing my family's narrative that I was a cold workaholic who prioritized career over people, hearing genuine concern from my boss was jarring. What if other perceptions I had about myself, perceptions planted by my family, were equally false? This question led me to my first appointment with Dr. Winters, a therapist Amber had recommended. I hadn't planned to see a therapist, but the emotional aftermath of the confrontation was proving harder to handle than I'd anticipated. Nightmares, panic attacks, periods of dissociation where I'd stare at the wall for hours. I needed professional help. Family estrangement is like a form of grief, Dr. Winters explained during our first session. You're mourning the family you thought you had, the relationships you believed were genuine. That's a profound loss. She encouraged me to examine the family dynamics objectively, to question the roles we had all been assigned and played out for decades. "From what you've described, you were parentified at a young age," she observed. "Made responsible not just for your own success, but for the family's emotional and sometimes financial well-being. That's an unfair burden to place on a child." Over the next few sessions, we explored my tendency toward perfectionism and people-pleasing traits that had made me successful professionally, but had also left me vulnerable to exploitation by the people closest to me. "You've spent your life trying to earn love that should have been freely given," Dr. Winters said. "That's created a pattern where you overfunction, overachieve, overcontribute, hoping it will finally be enough. But in a dysfunctional family system, it's never enough." While working with Dr. Winters, I also began reaching out to extended family members, seeking their perspectives on our family dynamics. Most were surprised to hear from me directly, apparently. My parents had always controlled the narrative, explaining my absences from family gatherings as evidence of my disinterest in family connection. Uncle Frank, my father's brother, was particularly illuminating. "Your mother has always been jealous of you, Leah," he told me bluntly during a long phone call. "From the time you were a teenager, getting academic awards and scholarships. Elizabeth dropped out of college to marry your father, you know. She had dreams of becoming a journalist, but she gave it all up for family. Watching you achieve what she couldn't, I think it stirred up a lot of regret for her. But she was the one who pushed me to excel," I pointed out. "She and Dad both. They were always on me about grades, extracurriculars, building the perfect college application." "That's the contradiction," Uncle Frank said. "They wanted you to have the opportunities they didn't. But when you actually succeeded, it held up a mirror to their own choices, their own abandoned dreams. It was easier to resent you than to face that." Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, confirmed this assessment. "Your mother has been making passive-aggressive comments about your career for years," she admitted when I met her for coffee. "How you think you're too good for the family now. How you look down on their simple suburban life. I never saw that from you." But Elizabeth seemed convinced. "And Megan?" I asked. "Why the preferential treatment?" Aunt Patricia sighed. "Megan struggled more, needed more. Parents often give the most attention to the child who demands it loudest. You were self-sufficient from such a young age, Leah. You made it easy for them to focus on Megan." "That doesn't make it right," I said, fighting back tears. "No," she agreed, reaching for my hand. "It doesn't." I also reconnected with friends from childhood and college, people who had known me before my career success, before I'd allegedly become the judgmental workaholic my family described. Their recollections of me were strikingly different from my family's portrayal. "You? Judgmental?" My college roommate Sophia laughed when we spoke. "Leah, you were the most supportive friend I had. Remember when I changed majors 3 times and you helped me study for each new subject? You never once made me feel bad about it." My high school friend Tyler, now a teacher in our hometown, had similar memories. "You were always the responsible one in our friend group," he recalled over dinner during my visit back to Connecticut, but never in a condescending way. "You were the one who made sure we all got home safe, who helped everyone with homework, who remembered birthdays. If anything, you were too giving, too willing to put others first." These conversations were healing, but also disorienting. The version of myself reflected back by friends and colleagues was almost unrecognizable compared to the person my family had convinced me I was. Which version was real? The most illuminating evidence came from old home videos and photographs I found in digital archives and social media. Reviewing them with fresh eyes, I noticed patterns I'd missed before. In family photos, I was often slightly apart from the group, or missing entirely, because I was the one taking the photo. In videos from holidays and gatherings, I could see myself attempting to engage, to connect, only to be subtly rebuffed or interrupted. The physical evidence supported what my heart had always suspected I hadn't withdrawn from my family. They had pushed me away. A particularly painful discovery came from Megan's college graduation video. In it, my mother gave a tearful speech about how proud she was of Megan for persevering, for finding her path despite challenges. "Some people," she said, with a pointed look at the camera at me, "behind it think success is just about achievements and money. But true success is about connection, about heart." The family had applauded while I stood there filming, excluded even in that moment of celebration. Dr. Winters helped me process these discoveries without being overwhelmed by them. "What you're describing is a form of family scapegoating," she explained. "In dysfunctional family systems, there's often one member who becomes the repository for all the family's disowned feelings and failures. The identified patient who's blamed for all problems. But why me?" I asked. "What did I do to deserve that role?" "Nothing," she said firmly. "You did nothing to deserve it." Scapegoating isn't about the target's behavior. It's about the family's need to maintain their self-image and avoid confronting their own issues. You were likely chosen because you were strong enough to bear it, because you would internalize the blame rather than fight back. She was right. Throughout my life, I had accepted responsibility for family conflicts, had believed that if only I tried harder, communicated better, gave more, the relationship would improve. I had never considered that the problem wasn't my behavior, but the family's need for someone to blame. The hardest realization came during a session when Dr. Winters asked about my financial contributions to the family over the years. "You mentioned paying for the cruise," she said. "Have there been other significant financial gifts?" I thought about it, then began listing them. Helping with Megan's college tuition when she decided to transfer schools senior year, covering the costs when Dad needed dental work not covered by insurance, paying for Mom's car repairs, contributing to family vacations I was too busy to attend. I've probably given them around $85,000 over the past decade, I concluded, shocked by the total. "And what have they given you during that time?" Dr. Winters asked gently. I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. The truth was stark. A few birthday checks for $50, Christmas gifts that often missed the mark, a houseplant when I moved into my apartment. Nothing approaching financial support, not even close to reciprocity. "They told me they couldn't help with my down payment," I said slowly. "But they gave Megan $50,000 for hers. They said they couldn't contribute to my student loans. But I just found out they paid off Megan's entirely. And how does that make you feel?" "Like a bank," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. "Not a daughter." That night, I created a spreadsheet documenting all the financial support I'd provided my family over the years, alongside what they'd given me and Megan. The disparity was so stark, it couldn't be coincidence or oversight. It was deliberate, systematic favoritism, justified by the narrative that I could afford it, that I didn't need help, that Megan's needs were somehow more legitimate than mine. The next morning, I received a call from Megan. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Leah, please don't hang up," she began. "I've been thinking about everything you said at Mom and Dad's, about the cruise and all of it. I had no idea you paid for the entire thing. They told me we all contributed, that you'd put in more because you could afford it. I never would have gone if I'd known the truth." "What else have they told you about me, Megan?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She hesitated. "That you're very focused on your career, that you find family obligations burdensome, that you think we're beneath you now, that you're successful. And did that match your own experience of me? Have I ever treated you like you were beneath me?" "No," she admitted. "Never. That's why I was so confused when they would say those things. It didn't align with how you actually behaved. But they said it so often. I guess I started to believe it." We talked for over an hour, comparing notes on the different treatment we'd received, the different narratives we'd been fed. Megan seemed genuinely shocked by much of what I shared, particularly about the financial disparities. "I had no idea they paid off my student loans, but not yours," she said, sounding distressed. "They told me they were helping both of us equally. Leah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say." Part of me wanted to blame her, to lash out at the sister who had benefited so much from my exclusion. But Dr. Winters' words echoed in my mind. Megan wasn't the architect of this dynamic. She had been a child when our parents established these patterns, just as I had been. "It's not your fault," I finally said. "But I need you to understand that I can't just pretend everything's fine now. I'm not ready to forgive and forget." "I understand," she said quietly. "But I want you to know that Derek and I are on your side. Whatever happens with Mom and Dad, I want us to have a relationship. A real one. Not this twisted version they created." After we hung up, I sat with my feelings, trying to sort through the complex tangle of hurt, anger, and tentative hope. Could my relationship with Megan be salvaged? Could any of this be repaired? Did I even want it to be? One thing was becoming increasingly clear. My family would never acknowledge the truth unless forced to confront it directly. Their narrative about me was too deeply entrenched, too necessary for maintaining their self-image. If I wanted resolution, real resolution, not just a superficial peace, I would need to take more decisive action. With a clearer understanding of the decades-long pattern of exclusion and favoritism, I knew I couldn't simply let things go back to normal. There could be no more pretending, no more accepting the role they had assigned me in the family drama. But I also didn't want revenge hurting them wouldn't heal me. What I needed was acknowledgement, accountability, and concrete steps toward change. If any relationship was to continue, The question was how to achieve that with a family so committed to their version of reality. My first step was to consult with my friend Sophia, who had become a family law attorney. Over lunch at a quiet cafe near her office, I explained the situation, particularly the financial aspects. So technically, the cruise was fraud, Sophia said, tapping her pen against her notepad. You paid for a specific service, a cruise for your parents, and they materially altered that service without your consent by adding 2 more people. Could I actually press charges? I asked, more curious than committed to the idea. You could, she confirmed. It would be messy, and frankly, the cruise line shares some blame for allowing the reservation to be changed without the payer's consent. But yes, there's a legal case there. She went on to explain that while I probably wouldn't recoup my money through legal action, the threat of legal consequences might be leverage for a more productive conversation. Sometimes people need to understand there are real consequences to their actions before they're willing to engage honestly, Sophia said. I'm not saying sue your parents, but making them aware that what they did wasn't just hurtful, it was potentially illegal, might shift the dynamic. Next, I met with Amber and Rachel for what we half-jokingly called a strategic planning session. We took over a corner table at a wine bar, spreading out notes and documents as we talked through options. I think you need to go in with crystal clear objectives, Amber advised. What exactly do you want from them? An apology? Financial restitution? A change in behavior going forward? All of the above? It was a good question. What did I want? I want them to acknowledge what they've done, I said slowly. Not just the cruise, but the years of exclusion and favoritism. I want them to understand how deeply it's hurt me. And yes, I want some kind of restitution for the cruise at minimum. But mostly, I want to know if a real relationship is even possible, or if this pattern is too entrenched to change. Rachel nodded. That's reasonable. But you have to be prepared for them to deny everything, to twist it back on you, or to give a superficial apology without real understanding, Amber added. You know, we're sorry you felt that way, instead of, we're sorry we did this. They were right. My parents had decades of practice in maintaining their narrative, in making me the problem. A single confrontation, no matter how well prepared I was, wouldn't necessarily break through those defenses. What if you documented everything? Rachel suggested. Not just your version of events, but objective evidence. Financial records, those journal entries, the group chat screenshots. Make it impossible for them to deny the pattern. The idea resonated. Over the next week, I created a comprehensive document detailing my financial contributions to the family over the years, with dates, amounts, and purposes. The total was staggering. $87,342 over the past 10 years, including the cruise. By contrast, my parents had given me gifts totaling approximately $1,200 during the same period. I also compiled a timeline of exclusion, family events I hadn't been invited to, instances when plans had been changed to ensure I couldn't attend, the pattern of my accomplishments being downplayed while Megan's were celebrated. Each incident was supported by evidence, emails, text messages, social media posts, and testimony from extended family members who had agreed to confirm my account. The most damning evidence came from a surprising source. My father's email account. He had shared his password with me years ago when I helped him set up online banking, and either forgot or never bothered to change it. I hesitated to access it, knowing it was an invasion of privacy, but my need for truth outweighed my scruples. What I found was heartbreaking. An email exchange between my parents and their financial advisor from 3 years ago, discussing the college loans. We'd like to pay off Megan's remaining student debt, my father had written. We know we told Leah we couldn't help with hers, but frankly, Megan needs the assistance more. Leah's making 6 figures now. She'll be fine. Megan's career prospects are more limited. The advisor had cautiously questioned the disparity. Have you discussed this with both daughters? Sometimes financial decisions can create family tension when they're not transparent. My mother's reply was dismissive. Leah doesn't need to know. She'd just make Megan feel bad about needing help. Leah has always been competitive with her sister. I printed out this exchange, adding it to my growing file of evidence. My hands were shaking with anger, but also with a strange sense of vindication. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined the favoritism. It was real, it was documented, and it couldn't be explained away. Around this time, I received another call from Megan. This one was more tentative, less apologetic. "Mom and Dad want to know if you'll come to Sunday dinner next week," she said. "They think we should talk things through as a family, on their terms, in their home, where they control the narrative." I replied, "I don't think so." "Leah, they're trying," Megan pleaded. "Can't you meet them halfway?" "I've been meeting them more than halfway my entire life," I pointed out. "Where has it gotten me?" "No. If we're going to have this conversation, it needs to be neutral territory, with clear ground rules, and with all the facts on the table." "What does that mean?" "It means I want a mediator present. A professional who can keep the conversation productive and honest." Megan was silent for a moment. "They're not going to like that." "I'm not concerned with what they like right now, Megan. I'm concerned with finding out if this family is capable of honest communication, or if I'm better off accepting that it isn't and moving on with my life." After some back and forth, Megan agreed to present my terms to our parents. As expected, they initially refused, calling it ridiculous and extreme to involve an outsider in family business. But when I made it clear this was my only offer, and hinted that my lawyer friend had suggested there might be legal implications to their misappropriation of the cruise funds, they reluctantly agreed. With the meeting set for the following Saturday at a conference room in a hotel halfway between our homes, I made one final preparation. I contacted Janet Franklin, a family mediator recommended by Dr. Winters, and scheduled a preliminary session to discuss the dynamics and my goals for the family meeting. "Your objectives are reasonable," Janet assured me after I'd explained the situation. "Acknowledgement of the pattern, genuine apology, financial restitution for the cruise, and clarity about whether the relationship can be rehabilitated going forward. I'll help keep the conversation focused on these goals." She also warned me to manage my expectations. "Family dynamics this entrenched don't change overnight," she cautioned. "This meeting is a first step, not a final resolution. Whatever happens, remember that you've already done the most important work, recognizing the unhealthy pattern and deciding not to participate in it anymore." The night before the meeting, I reviewed my evidence file one last time, ensuring everything was organized and clear. I rehearsed what I wanted to say, focusing on I statements as Dr. Winters had suggested. "I felt hurt when," rather than "you hurt me by." As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I love you, sis. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was happening." I stared at the message for a long time before replying, "Thank you. That means a lot." It wasn't forgiveness not yet, but it was an acknowledgement that perhaps one relationship in my family might be salvageable, even if others weren't. The stage was set for confrontation, but not revenge. I didn't want to hurt my family. I wanted the truth. And after decades of gaslighting and exclusion, I was finally ready to demand it. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool, a perfect early autumn day that belied the emotional storm I was walking into. I dressed carefully in a simple navy blue dress, professional but not intimidating, and arrived at the hotel 30 minutes early to meet with Janet, the mediator. "Remember, stay focused on your objectives," she reminded me as we reviewed the agenda one last time. When emotions run high, it's easy to get sidetracked into old arguments and patterns. I'll help redirect if needed, but try to keep coming back to what you want to accomplish today. My parents and Megan arrived together, exactly on time. Mom looked nervous, fidgeting with her purse strap as they entered the conference room. Dad wore his familiar stoic expression, the one that had intimidated me as a child but now just seemed like a mask. Megan gave me a small, tentative smile that I returned with a nod. "Thank you all for agreeing to meet here today," Janet began after introductions. "I want to clarify that my role is not to judge anyone or take sides, but to facilitate a productive conversation where everyone feels heard. We have 3 hours scheduled, and I suggest we use them well." She outlined the ground rules. No interrupting, no personal attacks, using I statements when possible, and taking breaks if emotions became too intense. Then she turned to me. "Leah, since you requested this meeting, would you like to start by sharing what you hope to accomplish today?" I took a deep breath, unfolding my prepared notes. First, I want to thank you all for coming. This isn't easy for any of us, but I believe it's necessary if we're going to have any kind of relationship going forward. I explained my 4 objectives: acknowledgement of the pattern of exclusion and favoritism, a genuine apology, financial restitution for the cruise, and clarity about whether our family relationships could be rehabilitated. I've spent months in therapy and reflection, trying to understand how we got here, I said. Looking at each family member in turn, I've realized that for most of my life, I've accepted a role in this family that isn't healthy for me. I've been the responsible one, the giver, the one who's expected to understand when I'm excluded or treated differently from Megan. I've contributed financially while receiving little support in return. I've accepted blame for family tensions that weren't my fault, and I've allowed you to maintain a narrative about me that I'm judgmental, too focused on work, too busy for family, that simply isn't true. Mom opened her mouth as if to interrupt, but Janet gently raised a hand, reminding her of the ground rules. I continued. The cruise was the breaking point, but it wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern that's been going on for decades. Today, I want us to acknowledge that pattern honestly, to understand how it's hurt me, and to decide if we're willing to create a healthier dynamic going forward. Janet thanked me and turned to my parents and Megan. Would any of you like to respond to Leah's opening statement? Dad cleared his throat. I think Leah's blowing things out of proportion. Every family has its issues, its misunderstandings. To call in a professional mediator over a vacation seems extreme to me. It wasn't just a vacation, Dad, I said quietly. It was an $18,000 gift that you changed without my consent. And more importantly, it was yet another instance of being excluded from my own family. We thought you were too busy, Mom began. That's not true, and you know it, I interrupted, then caught myself. I'm sorry for interrupting. But Mom, I have evidence that contradicts that explanation, and so I began the methodical presentation I had prepared. I distributed copies of my evidence file to each person, walking them through the pattern, the financial disparities, the exclusion from family events, the manipulated wedding date, the deliberate cultivation of a narrative about me that didn't match reality. I read aloud from my mother's journal entries, watching her face pale as her own words came back to her. I showed the email exchange about paying off Megan's loans while telling me they couldn't help with mine. I presented the records of my financial contributions to the family alongside what I had received in return. This is an invasion of privacy, Dad sputtered when I showed the email exchange. You had no right to access my account. You're right, I acknowledged. It was wrong of me to access your email without permission. I apologize for that breach of privacy. But does that change the content of what I found? Is any of this information untrue? He didn't answer, looking away instead. As I continued my presentation, Mom became increasingly agitated. Finally, she burst out. Stop it. Just stop it. Why are you doing this to us? Why are you trying to make us look like terrible parents? I'm not trying to make you look like anything, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I'm presenting facts. If these facts make you uncomfortable, maybe the question is why you behaved this way, not why I'm bringing it up. You've always been so sensitive, she shot back, so quick to feel slighted. We gave you everything growing up. We encouraged your education, your career, and this is how you thank us? By airing our private family business to a stranger? She gestured toward Janet. Mom, Megan interjected quietly. The things Leah's showing us, they're real. I didn't know about most of this, but I can't deny the evidence. We did exclude her. You and Dad did treat us differently. Mom turned to Megan, betrayal written across her face. You too? After everything we've done for you? That's part of the problem, Megan said. What you've done for me versus what you've done for Leah. It's not equal, Mom. It's not fair. Janet suggested a short break at this point, sensing the rising tensions. As we filed out of the conference room, Dad pulled me aside. What do you want from us, Leah? Money? Is that it? You want us to pay you back for the cruise? I want honesty, I replied. I want acknowledgement of what's happened. And yes, I think reimbursing me for the cruise would be a concrete step toward making amends. But this isn't about money, Dad. It's about years of being treated like I don't matter as much as Megan. like my feelings and needs are less important. He shook his head, looking suddenly old and tired. You've always had everything so easy. Top of your class, great job, financial success. Do you have any idea how hard it's been for your sister, living in your shadow? How hard it's been for your mother, watching you achieve everything she gave up? His words confirmed what Uncle Frank had suggested about Mom's jealousy. But they also revealed something I hadn't fully grasped. My father's perspective. So you admit it, I said slowly. You have been treating me differently. Not because I'm judgmental or work too much, but because you think I've had it too easy? Because you resent my success? He looked away, saying nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. When we reconvened, the dynamic had shifted. Mom was quieter, less defensive. Dad seemed resigned. Megan looked back and forth between our parents with new understanding in her eyes. I'd like to share something, Megan said when Janet asked if anyone had reflections after the break. Growing up, I always thought Leah had it all together. She was smart, responsible, successful. I felt like I could never measure up. What I didn't realize until recently is that my perception was shaped by how Mom and Dad talked about Leah versus how they talked about me. Leah was held to an impossible standard, expected to be perfect, while I was allowed to make mistakes, to explore, to find myself. She turned to me. I benefited from that double standard, and I didn't even realize it was happening. I'm sorry, Leah. I should have seen it sooner. Mom burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. I never meant to hurt you, Leah. I saw so much of myself in you, the ambition I once had. But you gotta fulfill those dreams while I gave mine up for family. Sometimes it was just hard to watch you soar while feeling stuck myself. So you punished me for your choices? I asked, not unkindly. You resented me for becoming what you encouraged me to be? I didn't think of it as punishment, she said, wiping her eyes. I thought we were just balancing things. You had career success. Megan needed more support in other ways, but you never asked me what I needed, I pointed out. You assumed that because I was successful professionally, I didn't need family support or inclusion. Do you have any idea how lonely that's been? For the first time, I saw genuine realization dawn in my mother's eyes. I never thought of it that way, she admitted. I just saw your beautiful apartment, your promotions, your independence. I didn't consider what you might be missing. Dad had remained silent through this exchange, but now he cleared his throat. There's something else you should know, Leah, about the cruise. There was another reason we invited Megan and Derek instead of you. Mom shot him a warning look, but he continued. We're in financial trouble. Have been for a while now. I made some bad investments, took out a second mortgage without telling your mother. We were hoping. Well, Derek's family has money, and we thought if they saw we were struggling. You were planning to ask Derek for money during the cruise? I asked, incredulous. Dad nodded, shame evident in his slumped posture. That's why they were so upset when you confronted them about the cruise, Megan added, looking embarrassed. They hadn't worked up the courage to talk to Derek yet, and your call exposed everything. I sat back, processing this new information. My parents' financial mismanagement added another layer to their treatment of me. They had been cultivating Megan and Derek as potential financial saviors while pushing me away, despite my actual contributions to the family finances. Why didn't you just ask me for help? I asked softly. I've always helped when you needed it. We couldn't keep taking from you, Mom said. It felt wrong. And Derek's family has so much more than you do. So instead of asking openly, you manipulated the situation, excluded me from a trip I paid for, and planned to use it to extract money from your son-in-law. Can you see how dysfunctional that is? They both nodded, unable to meet my eyes. Janet guided the conversation back to my original objectives. It seems we've had some important revelations today. Elizabeth and Richard, do you acknowledge the pattern Leah has identified? The differential treatment between your daughters? After a pause, both my parents nodded. Yes, Mom said quietly. I can see it now, looking at everything together like this. We did treat you differently, Leah, and it wasn't fair. And we are sorry, Dad added, his voice rough with emotion. Truly sorry. Not just for the cruise, but for making you feel less valued, less important to this family. You deserved better. As for the financial restitution, Mom continued, We can't pay you back all at once, but we want to make it right. We could set up a payment plan. Actually, Megan interjected, Derek and I have discussed it, and we want to pay you back for our portion of the cruise. It's the right thing to do. I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders as each of my objectives was addressed. The acknowledgement, the apology, the commitment to financial restitution. But the final objective remained the most nebulous. Could our family relationships be repaired? Janet posed this question directly. Where do you all see your family relationships going from here? What would need to happen for healing to occur? The conversation that followed was possibly the most honest we'd ever had as a family. We talked about boundaries, about communication, about the need for transparency going forward. My parents admitted they would need help breaking old patterns and agreed to consider family therapy. Megan and I discussed building a sister relationship independent of our parents' influence, based on mutual respect and honesty. I can't promise immediate trust, I told them all. That will take time to rebuild, but I'm willing to try if you are truly committed to change. By the time our 3 hours were up, we had a concrete plan. My parents would begin repaying the cruise cost at $500 per month, with Megan and Derek contributing their share. We would attend monthly family therapy sessions for at least 6 months. All family gatherings would be planned with transparent communication about who was invited and why. And most importantly, we would all commit to honesty, no more secret group chats, no more hidden resentments, no more manufactured narratives. As we prepared to leave, my mother reached out tentatively to touch my arm. I'm so sorry, Leah, for all of it. I hope someday you can forgive me. I didn't say it would be easy or immediate, but I did say what was true. I hope so too, Mom. The family reckoning had been painful, exhausting, and more revelatory than I could have imagined. Walking out of that hotel, I felt both drained and strangely light, as if I'd set down a burden I'd been carrying for years. Whether this would lead to genuine healing or merely a more honest separation remained to be seen. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had been truly seen by my family, not as the character in their story, but as myself. I know many of you have faced similar family revelations. Was there a moment when everything you thought you knew about your family was turned upside down? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it too. 6 months have passed since that intense mediated family meeting, and I'm sitting on the balcony of my apartment, watching the New York sunset paint the buildings in gold and pink. So much has changed. Yet change has come in small increments rather than dramatic gestures. A text message returned promptly, an invitation extended without assumptions, an honest conversation where there might once have been avoidance. The process of rebuilding trust with my family has been like watching a Polaroid develop slowly, the picture becoming clearer bit by bit, but never quite as sharp as you might hope. There have been setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of connection and frustrating regressions into old patterns. My parents have attended therapy consistently, both as a couple and in our monthly family sessions. The first few meetings were tense, with Mom often becoming defensive and Dad retreating into silence when difficult topics arose. But gradually, with the therapist's guidance, they've begun to recognize their behaviors in the moment rather than after the fact. I'm doing it again, aren't I? Mom said during our third session, catching herself mid-complaint about my unavailability for an impromptu lunch. I'm putting expectations on Leah without considering her schedule, then feeling rejected when she can't meet them. That self-awareness was a small victory, one of many that have accumulated over time. The financial aspect has been the most straightforward to address. True to their word, my parents have made monthly payments toward reimbursing me for the cruise. Megan and Derek immediately paid their portion $6,000 in a lump sum, with a heartfelt card expressing their remorse for their unwitting role in the situation. The remaining balance from my parents is now under $5,000, and while the money matters less to me than the principal, their consistency in making payments has been a tangible demonstration of their commitment to making amends. My relationship with Megan has improved the most dramatically. Freed from the dynamic our parents had fostered between us, we've discovered a genuine connection that had been stunted by years of manufactured competition. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy 3 months ago, my nephew Oliver, and asked me to be his godmother, a gesture of trust that moved me deeply. I want him to know his Aunt Leah, she told me at the hospital, placing the tiny bundled infant in my arms. I want him to have your strength, your integrity, your determination. Holding Oliver, I felt a surge of protective love, and also a sense of possibility that perhaps this new generation might grow up in a healthier family system than the one Megan and I had navigated. At work, I've found a new balance. The confrontation with my family forced me to examine my own workaholic tendencies, to recognize how I'd internalized the message that my value lay in achievement and contribution. With Dr. Winter's continued support, I've established better boundaries, delegated more effectively, and even taken an actual 2-week vacation, a first in my career. Ironically, this more balanced approach led to the promotion I'd been working toward. Janet, my boss, called me into her office in January. "Your work has always been exceptional, Leah," she said. "But in the past 6 months, you've demonstrated something even more valuable: leadership. You're building a team that functions well even in your absence, making decisions that consider the long term, not just immediate results. That's the kind of marketing director we need." The title came with a substantial salary increase, which I've chosen to invest rather than spend. The experience with my family has taught me to be more protective of my financial resources, to recognize that generosity without boundaries isn't really generosity at all. It's a pattern of self-sacrifice that eventually breeds resentment. Perhaps the most unexpected development has been in my personal life. At a marketing conference in Chicago, one I might once have skipped to accommodate a family obligation, I met Jake, a creative director from a West Coast agency. Our conversation at the networking event turned into dinner, which turned into daily phone calls, which evolved into bi-weekly visits between New York and San Francisco. Jake is different from anyone I've dated before: direct but kind, ambitious but balanced, perceptive about family dynamics from navigating his own complicated relationships with divorced parents. He respects my career without being intimidated by it. And most importantly, he sees me clearly not as the responsible one, the achiever, the giver, but as a complex human with strengths and vulnerabilities, achievements and insecurities. "What I admire most about you," he told me recently, "is your courage to confront difficult truths, to set boundaries even when it's painful. That takes real strength." Coming from him, the compliment felt genuine, not like the conditional praise I'd grown up with that always carried unspoken expectations. The holiday season tested our family's progress. Instead of the traditional Christmas at my parents' house, which held too many difficult memories, we agreed to gather at a mountain cabin rental, neutral territory, where we could create new traditions. Planning was collaborative rather than dictated by my parents, with everyone contributing ideas and respecting others' preferences. There were tense moments, of course. Mom still occasionally slipped into martyrdom. Dad still sometimes withdrew rather than expressing his feelings directly. I found myself falling back into the peacemaker role more than once, but the difference was that now we could name these patterns, pause, and redirect. "Remember what Dr. Larson said," Megan gently reminded Mom when she began sighing about all the cooking she had to do. "Ask for what you need instead of expecting us to read your mind." And Mom actually did, requesting specific help with meal preparation, rather than suffering in silent resentment. Small steps, but significant ones. I won't pretend everything is perfect now, or that all wounds have been healed. There are still moments when I feel the old hurt resurfacing, when I question whether the changes in my family are genuine and lasting. Dr. Winters assures me this is normal, that trust rebuilds gradually and healing isn't linear. "The goal isn't a perfect family," she reminded me in our last session. "The goal is a family where everyone can be authentic, where boundaries are respected, where love isn't conditional on fulfilling assigned roles." By that measure, we're making progress, however halting and imperfect. I've learned that forgiveness isn't a single decision, but a process that unfolds over time, that requires both accountability and grace. I've forgiven Megan more fully than my parents, whose deeper patterns and longer history of hurtful behavior make trust more difficult to restore. But I've also discovered that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or returning to the old dynamic. It means moving forward with clear eyes and strong boundaries, extending compassion without sacrificing self-protection. It means acknowledging that people can change, but also that change takes time, consistency, and genuine effort. As for the cruise money, I've made an unexpected decision. Once the final payment comes in, I don't plan to save it or spend it on practical needs. Instead, I'm booking a solo trip around the world 2 weeks in Asia, visiting Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam. Another 2 in Europe, exploring Italy, France, and Spain, places I've always wanted to see but deferred in favor of work or family obligations. This trip represents something important: investing in my own joy, my own experiences, without apology or justification. Not in spite of my family, not to prove anything to them, but simply because I deserve adventures and discoveries of my own choosing. My mother was puzzled when I shared this plan. All alone? Won't you be lonely? I don't think so, I told her honestly. I'm looking forward to experiencing these places on my own terms, making my own schedule, following my curiosity wherever it leads. Her brow furrowed briefly before she caught herself. Well, it sounds wonderful. I hope you'll share photos. A small exchange, but indicative of our new dynamic, her initial reaction, her recognition of the old pattern, her effort to respond differently. Not perfect, but progress. As I finish writing this reflection, I'm struck by how differently I feel compared to a year ago. The pain hasn't disappeared entirely, but it's no longer the sharp, constant ache it once was. In its place is something quieter, more nuanced, a melancholy awareness of what was lost, what might have been, alongside genuine appreciation for what remains and what is newly possible. I've learned that family love, like all love, should enlarge us rather than diminish us. It should create space for authenticity, for growth, for joy, not demand conformity to roles that constrain and diminish. I've learned that my worth isn't measured by what I achieve or contribute, that I deserve love and inclusion simply for who I am, not what I provide. Most importantly, I've learned that it's never too late to disrupt unhealthy patterns, to demand truth even when it's uncomfortable, and to create relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation or manipulation. The journey isn't easy or straightforward, but it's worth every difficult conversation, every painful revelation, every uncertain step towards something more authentic. If my story has resonated with you in any way, I hope it offers some comfort or courage for your own family journey. Have you ever had to confront difficult family dynamics to create healthier relationships? What helped you through that process? I'd truly love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Before you go, please take a moment to like this video if it meant something to you, and subscribe to join our community of people sharing real stories about family challenges and growth. Your support helps these stories reach others who might be struggling with similar situations and reminds them they're not alone. Thank you so much for listening to my journey. And remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can give. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next story.